Good afternoon, everyone from Johannesburg, South Africa. Thank you for joining us this afternoon to this brilliant launch that we are about to have in the African context. I'm just going to allow a few people to keep joining, and in the meantime, you can in the chat, just as usual, let us know where you're coming from. Feel free to just announce who you are, where you're coming from, so we know where these different perspectives will be coming from in this conversation today. So my name is Talita Tlaka. I am the communications officer at the Clear AA in Johannesburg, situated at Wits University. I do have with me a panel of experts who will be engaged in this conversation with us today. But before I introduce them, if you are new to Glocal Evaluation Week, this is really a knowledge sharing platform that is participated by evidence practitioners, by academics, by policymakers, by development partners, and so forth. So this is a global collaboration with participation in local evaluation, Glocal Evaluation Week, which is organized locally in different regions across the world. I just wanted to let you know that in case you are speaking a different language to English, there is at the bottom of the screen, you will see the three dots. If you can just kindly go into them and click into the language that you prefer to listen to, then you would be able to follow the conversation. So before we go any further, I'm going to introduce our implementing partner, Global Evaluation Initiative, the acting program manager, Dr. Douglas Clanton, to just give us a few remarks before we proceed.
Thank you very much, Talita. So hello to everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, evening, and in some cases, very early morning or very late night. Welcome to Glocal Evaluation Week 2026. So as you may know, from June 1st to 5th, Glocal will convene the global M&E community across continents, across sectors, to discuss evaluation, evidence, and trust in the age of AI. And everyone is welcome to join the debate. At GEI, we're delighted to launch Glocal Evaluation Week with you today. Earlier this week, we launched Glocal at the global level with an engaging discussion on artificial intelligence and the future of evaluation, sharing perspectives from evaluators and institutions on how to navigate this context. So on Wednesday, we also launched Glocal from Latin America and the Caribbean, broadening and deepening the conversation from the perspective of colleagues across the Atlantic. So today, we're eager to inaugurate the debate from Africa, diving deeper into the lessons learned and opportunities and challenges that lie ahead for the use of AI in monitoring and evaluation in this region and globally. Today's event is an invitation to initiate a broader discussion on the concepts, opportunities, and emerging debates that will shape the use of AI in evaluation in Africa and around the world. It will be a conversation that will continue to expand, that we will continue to expand, and will be enriched throughout Glocal and beyond. So, for those of you who may not be that familiar, GEI, with the CLEAR Centers, has convened Glocal since 2019. And by the end of this year's edition, the initiative will have hosted more than 2,600 events across all its editions. So with this, Glocal has become one of the largest M&E knowledge sharing initiatives in the world. Glocal 2026 will host 330 events, which will be implemented by nearly 250 organizers from diverse regions and organizations. We also expect that close to 20,000 participants will join these events. Glocal, as you may know, is a community-driven initiative. It works because people across the world step up to share their knowledge, their questions, their experience. So thank you for your continuous support and commitment to this initiative. This year, The Glocal M&E community is coming together to discuss evaluation, evidence, and trust in the age of AI. We have made this invitation because AI is central to all of our work, central to our work at GEI as well, for our partners, and for the evaluation profession itself. We know that AI and the emergence of AI is raising important questions that go to the core of evaluation, monitoring evaluation, what we're trying to accomplish, and even the relevance of ourselves as professionals. Asks questions about how do we generate evidence? How is the evidence used? How are people expecting to see that at their fingertips? What does credible evidence mean? And what's the role of humans sort of in the process of generating evidence when people are relying on AI to get answers so quickly? So Global Evaluation Week is a privileged space to dive into these questions together, to hear from perspectives from all over, all different types of vantage points. And I am very pleased that we're having this conversation today here with such a fantastic panel. So many, many thanks to the distinguished panelists for their generosity in sharing their perspectives, and many thanks to Clear Anglophone Africa for organizing this session. Back to you, Talita.
Thank you so much, Dr. Glendon. I really like what you said about the platform being a platform of sharing, of reflection, of perspective, of just coming together and really sharing our ideas. And this is really what we're expecting in this session today. It's not really going to be just the speakers, the panel talking to us today, but it's going to be all of us sharing into this ideas that we have around what does evaluation and evidence look like in the space that we are in the age of AI, because I think this is a subject that affects many sectors, but more so maybe for us who deal with issues of ethics and trust and you know the credibility of the kind of content that we work with. So we're very, very excited that you could join us, and we do expect to hear from you with the work that you're doing and share with us. This is what it's about. We don't know everything, so we want to learn from you too. So without any further delays, I want to introduce to you our moderator for this session, Eugene Sinistone, who's an ICT enthusiast and an M&E methodologist. And Eugene will be able to also introduce our panel for the day and the running order of the day. Eugene, over to you.
Thank you very much, Talita. Thank you, Doug, for that quick introduction. I'm sorry, Douglas, let me say so. So I really appreciate the fact that you have already touched on very pertinent issues that we are going to be talking about. So today's session situates African evaluators at the center of, a fast-moving global shift in how evidence is being generated, interpreted, and even being used for decision making. And over the last few years, AI has also moved from just being experimental pilots into now the mainstream use of it, courtesy of what we've seen so far in some of the papers, not only in Africa, but also globally. AI now is supporting everything from real-time data collection and even NLPs, what we call the natural language processing in African languages, to even rapid synthesis. So we expect today to be this place where we can now share what are the perspectives from that end. Now, at the same time, some of the underlying models, data sets, and governance frameworks are still designed in and for the global north, which also risks exploiting some of our values, and there are some actually blind spots that have been identified for African evaluation systems. So today's discussion is going to be around this, and we'd like to really understand how African countries are going to move from this place where they're actually rapidly developing AI policies and strategies, initiatives like AI for Development, AI for D, and even the new AI evaluation alliances that are being formed around localization, which was first introduced by the long gone USAID. But we're seeing that now we want to see how that can actually come into navigate into the middle income context or low resource settings in Africa. So Made in Africa is something that is actually out there and is being called out for. And I'm glad that Clear AA is actually organizing this, and I've written a very wonderful book. A third one in addition is actually also on the way, Equitable Evaluations. So where do we belong as Africa in this conversation around AI? So the decolonization and ethics lens is one of the things that we cannot afford to ignore in this conversation. There's a strong push to the question whose truth and whose power are encoded in evaluation tools and standards. And we need to be able to come to that. Now, for us to be able to have this conversation, I have here a very well, a very good panel. We're going to see things that are coming from a governance and democratic perspective. We are going to see things that are coming from a decolonization perspective. We're going to see things that are coming from a global innovation perspective and also from a youth perspective. And all these together, we should be able to have a very interesting conversation. Allow me to introduce our panelists. First is Professor Silva Ferretti. We shall play her video. She is an independent evaluation consultant with over 20 years of experience in humanitarian and development work across more than 50 countries. And she's well known for her participatory and complexity-aware approaches in evaluation spaces. She's busy exploring new directions in evaluation using AI. So we are really glad to have you here, Professor Ferretti Silva. Our next presenter then will be Dr. Awor Ponge, who is a Senior Associate Fellow in charge of Research, Policy, and Evaluation at the African Policy Center and an adjunct faculty member in Gender and Development Studies at Kenyatta University and also Jaramogi Oginga Odinga University. He holds a double master's degree in development studies and in education, gender, and international development, and has extensive experience leading multidisciplinary research and evaluations for organizations such as UN Women, UNICEF, USAID, and major other foundations. Then we shall have a presentation from Dr. Stephen Masaure, who is a senior researcher at the Center for Learning on Evaluation and Results, Anglophone Africa, Clear AA, at the University of Witwatersrand in Johannesburg. His works focuses on strengthening monitoring, evaluation, and learning systems with a particular interest in decolonizing evidence and addressing the hegemony of global North data and values in AI-driven evaluations. And lastly, we shall hear from the voice of the next generation. We need to pass the baton, and Anna Elsie Luyigo, who is the current president of the Young and Emerging Evaluators in the Ugandan chapter under the Uganda Evaluation Association and a member of the Global E Network. She's a digitally native evaluator. She works at the intersection of youth leadership, AI, evaluation practice, focusing on how youths in low and middle income setting use AI. She's also currently a PhD student. With this wonderful panel, I would like us to run our first poll, and it's going to just see where you are, how you are, where you're situated, and we see how we can move it. So I'm going to run this poll right now to just see where we are. So the poll is running. Take a moment. It's not going to run for around 30 seconds or so. Feel free to just respond to the two questions quickly. Which best describes your current role? And the second question is, how do you often currently use AI tools in your monitoring and evaluation work? Right after this, we are going to listen from Professor Ferretti in her video. Beautiful. I see very interesting answers here, and I think the day is already winning. Okay, we have around 10 seconds to go. About 5 now. And for those who have not responded, it's not a bad one. I think we shall work with what we have right now. Thank you very much for being here. And we can see already that from what we are doing, most of us are either independent consultants or are working with NGOs or international organizations. So approximately 66% of our current listeners are from NGO world and also independent consultants. A few from academia, a few who are young and emerging evaluators, and we also have some representation from government, which is a good sign too. And then when it comes to the use of AI tools in M&E, we see 41% are actually in agreement that they're using these on a daily basis. So we can create a conversation going forward from here. And I will invite Claudia to play us the video for Dr. Ferretti.
This session is about AI and the future of evaluation. It brings together global and African perspectives. When invited, I asked myself, as a European, what am I doing here? What can a global perspective actually add? For me, the answer is mostly about recognition. It is not about telling Africa what the future of evaluation is in the time of AI. It is not about explaining AI to Africa, and it is definitely not about offering Europe as the model. It is worth remembering instead that many of the most advanced debates about AI and evaluation have come from the so-called South, and often from Africa or from people of African descent, long before Europe really engaged with them. A lot of the problems we now blame on AI were already there. We now worry that AI can make evaluation more mechanical, but often evaluation was already working like a machine. Global practitioners did not need to worry too much. After all, we were the ones getting the jobs, the money, the recognition. But now that AI can replace us, we are suddenly scared. Gosh, AI can substitute us. Maybe we should ask ourselves, if a machine can substitute us, is it because we were acting like machines ourselves, replicating over and over the same patterns and solutions? Some of the clearest and strongest resistance to these patterns has not come from Europe. African and decolonial debates have been much more alert and imaginative. Alert and rightly worried. This comes from a long experience with technology arriving with big promises and then reproducing bias, gaps, and dependency. But also imaginative because Africa also has a history of doing things differently, including leapfrogging stages instead of copying the North step by step. We've seen this before. When the internet spread, the question in many northern debates was, how long will it take Africa to catch up? How will Africa bridge the digital divide? As if the only path was to repeat, slowly, what the North had done. Instead, we saw things like e-payments reaching everyone, everywhere, fast, at a time when in the North we were not even thinking about mobile money. Africa didn't just catch up, it jumped ahead. The same now. Africa is spotting both challenges and opportunities quickly. And the twist is, these challenges pushed people to ask deeper questions that we all now have to confront. For example, language. In many African contexts, this is painfully obvious. Most tools work okay in English and a few big languages, but have no clue about many African ones. Some people faced the problem and started to build and test models in African languages. And the point is, AI is not just learning new words, it is also picking up different patterns and ways of thinking that simple translation would never capture. Another example, practice. The tools we use change the way we work. AI looked fine for many of us in the North because it replicated the patterns we were already using. The consequences? Echo chambers, locking us further into a business-as-usual way of working, at a time when business as usual is not enough. We need to bring in diversity and to question power, status, and the ways in which we make sense of reality. In African evaluation debates, the need to ground practice is very visible. Efforts like Made in Africa evaluation are making evaluation more rooted in African realities, values, and ways of knowing. And these efforts are now incorporating AI and piloting contextual, localized, participatory uses. When people are alert to the challenge, they can be much more creative in how they use the tool. This is why it is so important to look at actual experiences. And what about cost and access? In Europe, for a long time, we could pretend AI was a cheap tool. In many African settings, the price tag, the cost of data and connectivity, and the risk of lock-in to external platforms were visible concerns from the start. Experiences with open source and smaller models have become central in African discussions. From that angle, Europe has a lot to learn. We are only now waking up to some of the issues that African debates have put on the table for a long time. Who owns the platforms? Who sets the rules? Which languages and data count? Who can pay? Who is excluded? And how all of this links to questions of power, sovereignty, and control. We are waking up and realizing that we really should have questioned our digital tools much more. So, what can a European voice offer in a space like this? Maybe just this. To say openly that Europe is arriving late to debates that many African colleagues have been having for years. To say that what was sometimes dismissed as local or African concerns about cost, bias, language, power, control, and neocolonialism were in fact early warnings about global issues. What we can do together is to stop asking only what can AI do for evaluation as it is now, and start asking what kind of evaluation do we want AI to support? What kind of evaluation do we need for a world of polycrises, deep inequalities, and very different ways of knowing? Those are questions where Africa has already been doing a lot of thinking and a lot of practice. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof, on that presentation. And without further ado, I'm going to launch this poll to just check from her presentation, what did you get? Were you excited? Has your mind been tickled a little bit with regard to what he has talked about? And yeah, so after watching the video, what statement or which statement best reflects how you feel about AI in evaluation? So just take a moment, this is a reflection question to just check that we are actually moving together. So just let's keep on moving. We have 10 seconds to go. In 10 seconds, we close. And then we are going to hear from Dr. Ponge, who is going to now open up the conversation from what Silva has actually just told us in the video. She actually opens up a very interesting debate about what has actually been transpiring with regard to AI in the global north and AI in the global south. So it's an interesting discussion, and I would like to now close this and see that we have a conversation. Just sorry, just a second. Thank you very much. So, yeah, sorry. I would like to now introduce Dr. Ponge to take over from here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Eugene, for the introduction. And thanks, Professor Ferretti, for the wonderful presentation. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, sir.
Good.
Good and positive.
Great. I think, Talitha, you'll be able to share the slide from your end. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so I would like to talk, to reflect on the growing influence of artificial intelligence, especially across the African continent, across African governance, policy, and development systems. Just as a follow-up from what Silva has already mentioned, AI is no longer a future concept. It is something that is already shaping how decisions are made, how evidence is generated, and how accountability systems function. So the central question for Africa is not whether AI will influence development, but because this one already exists, the main question is rather how Africa govern and shape AI in ways that protect human dignity, strengthen democracy, and promote inclusive and context-sensitive development outcomes. So we know that evidence has always been central to governance and development. However, in the African evidence context, it has not always been technically accurate. So we say that it must also be ethical, it should be inclusive, and it should be grounded in African realities. So AI now has the capacity to transform how evidence is generated and interpreted, uh, as well as the speed and scale of this generation of evidence and interpretation of the evidence. So for the challenge that we have, the challenge that is there before us, is to ensure that AI strengthens accountability systems while remaining responsive to the African context, realities, cultures, and development priorities. So we are saying that evidence that is ethical, inclusive, and contextual has the power to transform the lives and strengthen accountability across the African continent. Next slide, Talitha. So the key emerging question that we are asking and that is guiding our discussion today is how can Africa shape AI, artificial intelligence, to strengthen democratic, inclusive, and complex aware, complex sensitive and complex responsive evaluation systems. We realize that AI is fundamentally changing who produces evidence, just as Professor Ferretti did mention. It has changed fundamentally who produces evidence, how the evidence is analyzed, and whose voice or whose voices are included in decision making. This therefore creates both opportunities and risks. On the one hand, AI can improve efficiency and access to information, but on the other hand, AI may unintentionally silence marginalized voices. So if African realities are excluded from AI systems, then definitely our voices could be unintentionally marginalized. So Africa must actively shape the future of AI rather than just passively consuming technologies which have been developed from elsewhere. Next slide. Good. Now, in terms of balancing the future of evaluation, one of the major governance concerns is that AI introduces entirely new centers of power, including technology corporations, algorithms, digital infrastructure, and data platforms. These actors increasingly influence public decision making, and yet they may remain outside traditional accountability systems. So African governments must therefore ask critical questions, right? They must ask critical questions about ethical oversight, critical questions about public accountability, critical questions about ownership of the development data. And most importantly, we must avoid allowing automation to replace human judgment. Just like Professor Ferretti was asking whether machine is going to replace us, and does it mean, therefore, that we have been acting like machines all along? So AI should support governance systems, but the final accountability must always remain with the human intelligence or with people and institutions. Next slide. In terms of policy insights, especially touching on Africa's regulatory framework, we say that African policy systems have been evolving. They're evolving, but more slowly than the technological innovation. So we find that many countries still lack comprehensive AI regulation, there's a lack of data governance frameworks, as well as ethical standards. Yet, we know that AI is already influencing governance, AI is influencing education, AI is influencing health, as well as development planning. This therefore creates a very dangerous policy gap that African governments must prioritize data, data privacy. They must prioritize cybersecurity. They must prioritize ethical AI standards, as well as prioritizing digital governance reforms. Most importantly, artificial intelligence governance should not exist separately from development planning. It must be integrated directly into national development agendas so that technology serves society rather than undermining it. Next slide. So Africa's development realities, as we have realized, are highly diverse and unequal. We continue to face digital divides. We have institutional disparities and even access to technology. So many imported AI systems do not adequately reflect African languages, they do not reflect African cultures, or they do not reflect the indigenous knowledge systems in the African context. So if this is left unchecked, AI may unintentionally reinforce this exclusion that we've had all along, exclusion and marginalization, not only in development, but also in evidence generation. That is why Africa cannot simply import models of AI from the global north. Instead, we must build Africa-centered AI systems that are locally grounded, inclusive, and very sensitive to the African context. So AI innovation must ultimately empower communities and also contribute to equitable development across the continent, just like Eugene had mentioned about the element of equitable development, and which I know one of the other panelists will be talking about shortly. Next slide. So in terms of opportunities for evaluation systems, we can say that artificial intelligence presents significant opportunities for strengthening evaluation systems. It can improve real-time monitoring, predictive analytics, as well as evidence synthesis. This can help governments and development partners to make faster and more informed decisions as a result of the faster generation of the evidence. So AI may also support continuous learning systems rather than relying only on periodic evaluations that are conducted every few years. However, there's an important caveat to this. AI could strengthen evaluation systems, not replace human participation and lived experiences. So we are saying that in as much as we are adopting AI, we must not forget about the human intelligence in this particular case. So development remains fundamentally about people, communities, and social realities that the AI algorithms alone cannot fully understand. So next slide. So in terms of the emerging debates and weighing the opportunities and risks, we are saying that the major debate today is not whether AI should be used, but how it should be governed responsibly. While AI opportunities for faster analysis and predictive insights While it offers this, it also raises concerns about technocratic governance, the algorithmic biases, and as well as digital exclusion. So there's a real danger that AI could centralize power and marginalize vulnerable communities. So African evaluation systems must therefore actively protect human dignity, indigenous knowledge systems, participatory approaches, as well as contextual integrity in adopting artificial intelligence. So the future of AI governance must remain deeply human-centered. And now in conclusion, next slide, please. So in conclusion, we can say that artificial intelligence is rapidly becoming a structural force that is shaping governance, it's shaping accountability, as well as development systems across the African continent. So the future challenge is not simply adopting artificial intelligence technologies, but governing them responsibly. Africa must ensure that artificial intelligence strengthens democracy, it advances inclusive development, preserves African context, protects human dignity, as well as support equitable evaluation systems. Ultimately, the question is not whether AI will shape Africa's future, but whether Africa will actually shape AI in ways that truly serve its people. So this is closely aligned to what Professor Ferretti mentioned about the leapfrogging when the global north thought about how will Africa catch up. But then Africa not only caught up with the pace, but even jumped ahead of the global north. So thank you so much for your listening.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Ponge, for that wonderful presentation. As I reflect on what he has presented, if you are here physically, I would have actually told you give him another round of applause. Unfortunately, I can't do that. So, but I know you can send some flowers where you are. So I'm going to launch a small poll. As that poll is running, I would like to just quickly reflect on what Dr. Ponge has touched on. First of all, Dr. Ponge is reminding us that AI is already, I think, probably structurally in force in African governance. And it's not distant in the future technology. And that has already been reinforced by what Professor Ferretti has actually even given to us. So it is quietly reshaping who produces evidence. And from the next presentations, we shall actually see some sneak peeks, especially from the young and emerging evaluators. We shall see that. Whose voices are heard and where power is sitting in this accountability system. Now, his challenge is very clear. Africa cannot simply consume AI built elsewhere. And we must actively shape the system so they protect the human dignity, strengthen democracy, and remain grounded in our own languages. Professor Ferretti already talked about this, but it's important for us to actually recognize that a few years ago, when you would actually type certain words, I don't want to talk about the exact words. For instance, in Google, using the AI, it will give you very interesting things that actually reflects somebody or some people from the global south. And it was an honest ask about a certain animal and things like that. So languages are very important. So how we shape this is going to be very important because what we feed it becomes it. So how do we also ensure that this is grounded in our cultures, grounded in our development priorities? That's very important. So this one basically means that that means evaluating AI itself and its data, its owners, and its blind spots and development priority. I mean, before we allow it to sit on decision-making tables, will actually be paramount because we need to be able to understand the AI built house. So I don't want to go into details about AI built house, but it's important that we recognize the 7 meters of AI. Maybe I'll talk about it when the presentations are finished and I demystify what AI house is all about. So with that question of who shapes AI, so we would like to understand your ethics, and I've seen some people have actually given us some thoughts about what they think about ethical risk of AI. And you can see on your screens right now how you feel about it. So privacy is becoming a big issue, and we're also going to talk about it. And if you have questions, please do not hesitate to use the QA button. The QA button should be able to allow you to ask a question, and some of the colleagues can be answering those questions as we go along. We also see bits of bias and representativeness of data is also a big risk that AI in M&E should also be resolved, and the others follow. So with this said, we'd like to now understand, where does this fall in the African context? Yes, Dr. Ponge has touched bits and pieces on African affairs, but from a globalistic perspective, he also touched on a few things. But we'd like now to deep dive into Made in Africa, equitable evaluations, and we see how Dr. Stephen feels about this particular subject. Over to you, Dr. Steve.
Yeah. Thank you, facilitator. Claudia, may you please share the probably the slides. So thank you so much, Eugene, and my fellow two facilitators. So I want to put a disclaimer here around my presentation, because I do believe that AI is quite a recent topic that we are still grappling with. But what we are going to, so you find out that some of the things that I'm going to be presenting, these are more like emerging issues that I can say of concerns to us as evaluators, and also to scholars who are pushing decolonization of the evaluation space. So in my presentation, what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to focus on the implications of AI on Made in Africa evaluation. I think some of you have heard about Made in Africa evaluation, and I think it has been pushed since the early 2000s. It's just what people are trying to do. They're trying to refocus evaluation from Western dominated methodologies to actually raising African voices, culture, and also try to integrate African philosophies in evaluation. So that kind of debate is actually currently ongoing. And now there's AI that is also coming, and there are also some other, what I can call probably some red flags that I want to raise today. So in my presentation, I might be a little bit alarmist, but you don't need to worry. I'm just trying to, it was part of my thinking around the subject. May please move to the next slide. So like what my fellow panelists have already said, I think these ones we all agree. There are quite a number of benefits that comes from AI. And one of it is actually the decolonization of evidence, where we can actually, as African evaluators, we can actually now start prioritizing our own indigenous data sets, and also develop our own frameworks, and also maybe probably train AI to focus on our own metrics that are based in terms of our local understanding of development. And also the issue of the language. There are concerns about language, but I think what we are seeing currently is that AI now is now managing to do quite a lot of work around some of the local languages. We're no longer limited to the big languages or maybe to the most commonly spoken languages in the world. But now we can actually have what local languages. And I think those people who have been doing maybe qualitative studies or using qualitative methods in evaluation, you discover that we'll do our interviews in a local language and then we translate it probably to English, and then we actually do the analysis in English. And the process of translation itself actually it changes or maybe distorts what was actually said, or the meaning of what was actually being said in the interview. But now we actually have now AIs can actually do the analysis in some of the local languages, which is actually a plus for us. And also the issue of the real-time data synthesis. I think this one is quite very important, because we now have AI. It can actually help us to start to understand our programs, our interventions much more better during implementation, as compared to just waiting towards the end of the program. Next slide, please. So okay, the next one. So there are some things that we need to look out for. And I think my fellow panelists raised some of these issues. So the first one is actually the bias in inputs. I think we know that the architecture of most of the AI's applications that we have, they are actually predominantly trained on linguistic and cultural data that is actually originating from, let's say, high-income Western countries, or maybe the global North. We know about this. And what normally happens is that it's more like we are transferring the problems that we had in evaluation to AI, because if the data that was used to train AI is still Western dominated, then it's more like transferring the same problem to the current space. So we need to actually look in terms of what that kind of the issue of bias in input. And then there's the issue of epistemic mismatch. I think when you go to decolonizing evaluation and also to Made in Africa evaluation, I think the biggest issue that people are actually trying to raise is that normally most of the evaluations are actually shaped by Western norms, values, and probably socioeconomic assumptions that do not actually apply to the local context in the African context. So you find out that AI also does the same. It also applies the same Western values probably when it does an analysis, or to the extent that we are replicating the same problems that we also have. And also there's the issue of silence in communities. This one, I think we know it, that in terms normally at times when we actually put the human touch in evaluations, we normally take care of maybe the local success stories, some of those outlier stories that we want to actually to raise. And in most cases, those ones are actually silenced if we use AI, because maybe it tries to generalize. We don't know about that. Next slide, please. And then there's also the issue of this whole issue about the black box of AI. You put in something and then it gives you something, but we don't know what happens in the background. We don't know the parameters that it used to do the analysis. So it actually causes a lot of issues, because we don't know what's behind AI. Is it actually equity-centered, the parameters that AI uses it might be to analyze a specific, maybe some transcript in an evaluation, or maybe generate maybe some sort of problem analysis, or when it's developing a report. We don't know what happens in the background. So you find out that what it does, it strips the agents, the human agents, and then we are farming that agents out to technology hubs, because they are the ones who decide in terms of what is much more useful to you or valuable to you, to the extent that we are now going to, in most cases, the evaluation process itself will be shaped by technological hubs, because they are the ones who know the algorithms that they use. Next slide, please. So on this one, there's also the issue of AI can also become a modern gatekeeper. In most cases, because we have actually limited evidence of indigenous methodologies, and then in terms of these large language models, you find out that there are those indigenous, probably indigenous methodologies. They can be actually be what labeled as anecdotal and also subjective, because they have not been researched enough. So in most cases, we end up actually having what indigenous knowledge actually being undervalued by AI. And then there's also the issue of forced structural conformity. This is where we are saying now, you have seen it, some of the TORs for evaluations are actually emerging, and they actually have a request or for maybe AI integration. So which means that everyone else now needs to conform to probably to the current developments in AI, which can also cause quite a bit of what, which can also be problematic, especially if you want to use probably indigenous knowledge system and some of the methods that are proposed for Made in Africa evaluation. And then on this slide, lastly, there's also issue of flattening the local realities. This is where we actually sacrifice custom community metrics to appease maybe what global standardized what data architectures. Because I think when Dr. Ponge was talking about, he was talking about the issue of getting standardized data to train AI systems. But I think in most cases, it's in that standardization, that way we actually lose maybe what the cultural nuances, the values, the norms that actually shapes our local communities. Next slide, please. Then what can we do? I think what we need to do, we don't want to play catch up. We really want to maybe start also to customize and also develop our own systems that that can be actually be integrated into the current AI frameworks. So in this case, what we're trying to do is that we don't want to replicate the same problems that we have in the current evaluation practices into AI, but we now want to, what we can actually do is to start actually building or maybe training AI on indigenous system on the on Made in Africa methodologies for evaluation. And I think when we start doing that, we won't be in a position to actually play catch up, but we're actually going to train AI to actually be what to be context specific as we practice evaluation in the global south. So then there's also the issue of if we don't start defining the issue of values norms that define what gets into AI, I think we are likely going to maybe to remain irrelevant, and also remain with the same problems of that we find that we're trying to address with Made in Africa evaluation. So we need to actually start doing that. And I think this is my my last slide. Yeah. Okay. So thank you. Over to you, Eugene.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Steve, for that. And as I reflect on what Stephen has said, I will also allow you to congratulate and thank him for us as you also respond to this particular poll. Now, from what I see, Dr. Stephen is actually making this debate interesting. He's pushing the front. If you have read The Chinese Room by John Searle, if you have gone through the text of Alan Turing on his Turing test, and if you have looked at what Gutzman Eugene, my namesake, has also done to test what AI does, it really brings us to a place of understanding what is this thing called artificial intelligence. Now, Dr. Stephen is actually bringing us into a place of tension. AI may expand speed and scale of evaluation, but it can also reproduce. Yeah, so we already see the hegemony from northern global north data can actually be reproduced. Values and assumptions can also be done so if we are not deliberate. So his presentation is actually a very strong reminder of what we actually need to actually set up the AI house. I'm still saying this song, AI house. So we need to be able to have the grounding, because right now, as we are talking, we're not talking about either accepting or not accepting. We already know, even from our first poll, that actually AI is actually being used daily to actually do the job. So how can we ensure that we can standardize the data? We can have algorithms that are actually working in favor of what we are in context of African affairs, values, and norms. If African realities, languages, and communities defined indicators are not built into these systems, then AI risks becoming a new gatekeeper that will definitely silence the knowledge. So we know from the School of Science, we talk about ontology and epistemology, and we are talking right now about epistemological issues. Where does the knowledge that you're using or going to give to the next person coming from? So what I find particularly interesting and powerful in Stephen's argument is the call to move beyond merely using AI efficiently and towards asking whose epistemology is being served or whose voice is it that we are actually living out. So in this question here, how ready are M&E systems in your country or organizations to use AI responsibly? I am seeing all of us, okay, most of us. I was going to generalize badly. So most of us are saying we are not ready. So basically, most organizations and individuals are running AI as experiments and also with little guidance. So this is very important for us going forward. And as we speak, we have a very good, interesting partner, Global Evaluation Initiative. We heard from Glendon earlier. So this is a subject that we need to take forward. How can we train people to actually start appreciating these bits of AI, because it's actually needed. It is from this point that takes us naturally to Anna Elsie, who will bring the perspective of young and emerging evaluators. But before we go into her session, I just want us to quickly look at what this means to the young and emerging evaluators. I would like to see your voice. How much voice? I know we have some emerging evaluators in this call as we speak. How much voice do young and emerging evaluators have in decision about AI use in evaluation in their context? So my question to you right now, and I would like you to respond to it so that by the time Anna Elsie starts doing her presentation, she has some voice that is actually reasoning with what is actually on ground. So the young and emerging evaluators who are on this call, and even those who are already practitioners, where do you think young and emerging evaluators fit in this context? Do they have a strong voice with the use of AI in your organizations? Are they being consulted? Or they basically listen to what is being said? So I'll give you more 5 minutes, it's 5 seconds, and then we can close this and allow Anna Elsie to come into play. So you can see the results are here, and most of us are saying these years have little voice in the kinds of decisions that are made around AI use in their context, in their organizations. Let's see what Elsie is going to tell us about in her presentation. Elsie, over to you.
Thank you so much, Eugene. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to all the colleagues who are joining this webinar on AI and evaluation. The conversation today, first of all, I want to thank the panelists who have come before me. They have kind of somehow preempted part of my presentation, but I'll try to, re-echo where I need to. But the conversation today centers on AI and the future of evaluation. But rather than just speaking about this broadly and taking it as a blanket item, let's specifically talk about the future of evaluation. And you cannot speak about the future of evaluation without having the young and emerging evaluators in the room. And for that, we are grateful to have been invited to partake of the discussion here, because AI is not just a topic we are watching from a distance. It is something that we are already working with. From the polls, you would see that a majority of us are already working with these AI tools. And we are already questioning it and actively shaping it. Some of us are already slowly but steadily training it in the local languages. But what does this mean for us as young and emerging evaluators? First of all, I want to just give a brief introduction of who young and emerging evaluators are. These are early career professionals in the field of evaluation, typically people below 35 years of age or 1 to 5 years of experience in the practice. But that does not limit us on how we perform or what tools we use in the work we do in regards to the evaluation ecosystem. I want to speak about this deliberately. When we talk about AI and evaluation, who is in the room shapes what gets said and done. As young and emerging evaluators, we are in this room today having this conversation about AI and the future of evaluation. And for that, we have something important to say, because yes, we might be young and emerging, but we have worked with these AI tools before, and we know how, perhaps we have an idea of where it is going. So maybe you could move the slide slowly. I'm just speaking, but slowly but steadily. Yeah, so maybe the next slide. So yes, how are young and emerging evaluators engaging with AI? Yeah. First of all, there is a lot that we are using there is a lot that we are doing using the AI. You can see in regards to data collection, Dr. Ponge and Dr. Stevens already mentioned about it. We're using AI for data collection and analysis, AI-powered surveys, automated transcription. I think 2 weeks ago, I was asking Eugene whether he had a paid AI tool that does transcription. Funny enough is that I wanted to transcribe FGDs that were in French. Yeah. I don't speak French, but I wanted to transcribe, you can imagine. So we are already using these tools for evidence synthesis, scanning large reports, volumes of literature, and, making making the use of it in a very short time to do huge sums of work. And we're also using it in assisted drafting of translation into local languages. Like I said, I was just using it to transcribe French FGDs, but also it is being used in data visualizations for community audiences. But that alone does not make us naive about our position, okay? There are opportunities and risks, of course, that come with having AI in evaluation or using AI, the different chatbots. We are quite conversant of the different AI tools. There's ChatGPT, Claude, Napkin, GenSpark, and so on and so forth. And each of these AI tools can be trained to serve the purpose that you need it to serve. But of course, there are risks that come with it. Dr. Stevens already mentioned about some of those risks. affecting the human judgment, you know, flattening the scope of how things are done, and you know, but we cannot say that we will do away with AI. Yes, the risks are there, but the advantages are also there. But what are those nitty-gritties? What are those nuances that we need to exploit the most and make reasonable use of AI in the evaluation? We have to weigh both sides honestly, yes? And as drivers of change, or as young and emerging evaluators, we are the future of evaluation. So what does that mean? We have to be the forefront players of the use of, rather the reasonable use of AI in evaluation. Now, first of all, like I said, we are not passive recipients. We are already using it. We are contributors. Some of you can even train the AI. Some of you who are, you know, tech savvy, you can train the AI in your local language. But as you train the AI, you should be an advocate. You should hold yourself accountable that you're training this tool or this chatbot to do this kind of work. But is it going to be reasonable? Is it going to produce something that is worthwhile without having to, you know, be judgmental of technology has swept away the human judgment element from evaluation. Yeah, we are building local AI literacy. For example, Uganda, the years from Uganda have the, you know, national evaluation talks that happen almost every last month. Yeah, they happen every last month of, or every last Thursday of the month. Different people are coming up to share how they are using these tools, these AI concepts in the evaluation practice. So this alone is already shaping the scale at which AI is being used, but also it's helping us amplify marginalized voices using AI tools in community-based evaluations to bring out data from populations that traditional evaluation, for example, has long overlooked. We see that young and emerging evaluators themselves, through networks like Eval Global, Eval Youth, we are sharing knowledge and bringing African realities into international conversations about AI, the standards, the ethics. Dr. Ponge talked about the ethics and where our voices, perhaps in the previous, were absent. We are also generating new knowledge, documenting what works as young and emerging evaluators. Majority of us are tech savvy, you know, sitting behind a computer 8, 10 hours a day just to make something, bring out the best in the shortest time possible. I once had someone say, I would rather use 3 hours to sharpen a knife or to sharpen an axe and do the work in 1 hour. You get it? Than using a blunt axe to do the work in 4 hours. I don't know whether that makes any sense to someone here. But yeah, young and emerging evaluators are also holding the profession accountable. We are asking hard questions. We are sitting in this room and sitting at this table asking questions about bias, exclusion, what happens when we refuse to adopt to the tools that serve our contexts. Dr. Stevens was mentioning that majority of these tools are Western trained. They speak the global North languages. What happens when we want the AI to speak to the realities of Africa, the realities of Uganda, Tanzania, South Africa, Benin, Congo, Burkina Faso, name it? Yeah. And also, we are co-creating the standards. We are participating. We are making a voice in shaping the global forums to ensure that the rules being written reflect the diversity and inclusivity of the young and emerging evaluators. This is not just aspirational, but this is what the young and emerging evaluators across the globe are actually doing. So the question you would pose is, what does AI unlock for young and emerging evaluators? Yeah, it creates a specific meaningful opportunity space, and I want to name 3 or 4. First of all, access to the profession itself. AI dramatically lowers the cost and complexity of rigorous evaluations. Yeah, because for young and emerging evaluators who are, bidding for their first assignment, for their first evaluation assignment, and they do not have the budgets to do large teams, AI comes in handy and it opens a door. There are so many organizations there that are willing to take an opportunity on young and emerging evaluators because they come with cheap budgets. And I'm not saying that young and emerging evaluators should be paid cheaply. No, but because of the presence of AI, we have learned to do work with slim budgets, but produce reasonably quality work. Secondly is real-time responsive evaluation. AI enables near real-time data processing, meaning emerging evaluators can deliver the findings that actually influence decisions rather than just reports that arrive, 3, 4, 5, 6 months after the window of evaluation has even closed. You see that. Thirdly, you talk about multilingual and inclusive reach, automated translation. Of course, Eugene, yourself, and Dr. Ponge, Dr. Steven, excuse me, they've spoken about local language and then the natural language processing that comes with AIs. It helps us engage communities in their own languages. That used to be expensive before, but slowly but steadily, training your AI has often skipped, and AI makes it practical to do this in the local languages. Talk about credibility. Yeah. AI allows lean teams of young and emerging evaluators to analyze data at a scale previously only possible for a large, team where you have, for example, huge data sets where you need a team of about 10 analysts to sit and have that data cleaned and coded and analyzed in about 5-7 days. You can do that with AI with a team of 3 analysts or 2 analysts in a period of 1-2 days, and you have work done. That matters for how we are perceived and also for the kind of evidence that young and emerging evaluators can produce in the age of AI. But I want to also ask another critical question, or we ask ourselves other critical questions. Who trains the AI? Yeah, most AI systems are Western trained, and they have been formulated and trained on models of the Western languages. And as young and emerging evaluators in Africa, we are asking directly, are our communities represented in those models? Are we applying foreign intelligence to local realities? And does this match our intention of Made in Africa evaluation? Who controls the findings? When we use AI in evaluation and we have reports and conclusions generated, accountability itself on the reports becomes murky. And we are insisting that evaluators, not just the models or the algorithms, evaluators, young and emerging evaluators, practitioners must remain responsible for what is reported, what is in that report. We do not want to say that AI made a mistake and, recommended something that is not applicable to the reality of perhaps a community in Burkina Faso or in DRC or in Uganda. We also ask what is lost when AI takes lead. Of course, we lose participatory evaluation. We lose the human voice. We lose the contextual nuances that could be flattened by the algorithmic efficiencies. And for young and emerging evaluators, the work that we do embedded in communities, this is not just an abstract concern. It is it's a present danger that we have to face with reality and have a very candid conversation with ourselves. What is this we are doing with this AI? Are we building skill or are we building dependency? Yeah. So many people or so many young and emerging evaluators, just because they can get the work done in a very short period of time using the AI, become so dependent on it that it kills, first of all, your human creativity. Yeah. So are we building skill, or are we building dependency on the tools and the models of these chatbots and AI tools? So we are saying there is a present danger that AI masks emerging evaluators pulling on it too heavily, because you will find a fresh graduate from university, they can't even analyze data on their own. They can't even clean data. They just have to give AI everything. So as a young and emerging evaluator, what skill do you have then that is making you competent in the market? You can't just say, yes, you can use AI. What happens when AI is put out of the picture? We must build genuine competencies first as young and emerging evaluators, and then use AI to amplify them. It is not the other way around. We cannot use AI to replace the competencies. We must have the competencies, and then we can then amplify them using AI. Who gets left behind when we use AI? The tools are very costly. Oftentimes, majority of these tools are English only trained. Right now, I think there are those that can, speak the French, Spanish, and so on. But what happens to our local languages beyond just, perhaps Swahili, French? What happens to Luganda? What happens to the languages from South Africa, the local languages from Nigeria, the local languages from, you know, Benin or Togo? Yeah. Um, because these tools are costly and they require reliable internet. Yeah, majority of these tools cannot be used without stable internet connection. I doubt if there is any AI that you can use offline. If there is any, please share that with me. I would love to explore it. But majority of them, you need internet. And if we are not careful, AI-driven evaluation will deepen the gap between how well-resourced and under-resourced evaluators, of course, practice. Lastly, I'm trying to summarize. So where do we stand, and our call to action as young and emerging evaluators? Number one, let's evaluate the AI. Yeah. Let's apply the same rigorous evidence standards to the AI tools that we apply to programs, to projects. Let's demand the transparency from AI. Dr. Steven talked about the black box. We don't know what happens behind the algorithm of what this model gives us on the interface. Yeah. Ask who built it, whose data, and for what purpose. Let's invest in the capacity building of the years in regards to using artificial intelligence. Let's train young and emerging evaluators across Africa to critically use AI outputs, not just consuming them. Fund that training. To our partners who are here, please do not get tired. We request of you, please fund the young and emerging evaluators to use and consume AI products reasonably to make it possible. 3, let's co-create global standards. The norms for AI in evaluation must not be written only in Geneva or New York or wherever. We are saying if we are using AI in Africa, the African and the global South voices should be in that room. They should form part of the conversation of co-creating the global standards of using AI in evaluations. Number 4, let's protect the human judgment. AI is a tool, and it should and must remain a tool. As an evaluator, as a practitioner, as a young and emerging evaluator, the community we serve must remain at the center of evaluation. We cannot use AI to replace human judgment. Thank you very much. Over to you, Eugene.
Thank you so much, Anna, for that wonderful presentation. And I would like I'd like to ask everyone to just give a round of applause in our usual style. Yeah. I like that. Thank you very much. So we have listened to this wonderful panel, and Anna closes it with, a very interesting conversation around the involvement of the youth and what they actually ought to have. And I like her finishing words. AI is just but a tool. That is key. We need to ensure, I think when I was still growing up and I was doing a course in information systems, we were told a hospital still remains a hospital with or without a tool. A doctor needs to still know how to do the injection, not somebody to come and do it or an instruction from somewhere. So this is a tool. How effectively can we use that tool? How ethically can we use that tool? So she's showing that the young and emerging evaluators are already using these AI tools for data collection, rapid evidence synthesis, multilingual reporting, and so on and so forth. Yes, it lowers the cost of rigorous evaluations, but at what expense? So the other bit that she has also talked about is with regard to the whose story is actually being picked, and I think this has come out very clearly even from our previous presenters, more so from Dr. Stephen. Whose story is being told is actually very important. So the risks, she has also touched on the risks. Over reliance on the tools, it can lead us to now start losing way. And I think where we are right now, we should be able to start thinking. You see, when computers were first introduced, I think that time they were calling it artificial intelligence. And what I've said right now might sound not complex, very simple, but 50 years from now, what you're seeing as AI won't be AI. It'll actually be a normal task. So we need to look at this on how we can actually now shape this tool. Okay, I can give another example with that regard. Right now, we are spending money on doing these translations, translate this, translate that. But I think a time will come, the 50 years I'm talking about, even 10 or so, when this is not going to be part of the things that you actually budget for, because they're going to be even open source tools that will enable you to actually do the translation. So when you're actually doing your budgeting for a field job, there will not be a budget for that because those tools are readily available in the market. So we are now in this space where I would like to ask just 3 questions, each one to each of the panelists, and they will use about maximum 3 minutes each. They'll respond to that. I know some of those questions are going to actually be able to answer some of the questions I've already seen inside the chat. My first question is going to Dr. Ponge. If we are in agreement that AI must remain a tool, not just for the evaluator, what are 1 or 2 non-delegable evaluation judgments that must always stay with humans, regardless of how advanced AI is? So that is a question to Dr. Ponge. Then second question, my colleague is just leaving, sorry. Second question is going to Dr. Stephen. We've heard from Anna. So we need to reconcile the efficiency gains Anna has been trying to describe. The real-time processing, automated coding, multilingual translation. Now, you mentioned a few things about the same. And also Dr. Ponge mentioned some things about some of the warnings about, it was on algorithmic colonialism and new centers of power. My question to you is, where is the red line? Where is the red line for this? which speed is no longer worth the loss of contextual integrity. Where's the red line? So that is to you, Dr. Steve. And lastly, to you, Anna, what would an African AI-ready evaluation system look like in 2030? 2035, thereabout. So let's hear from our wonderful panelists. Once they finish responding to these questions, we should be able to now take questions from the floor. Over to you, Dr. Ponge.
Yes. Oops. Sorry. Yeah. Thanks so much, Eugene, for the questions. I don't know whether I'll say that it's a difficult question, but I hinted slightly to it that in as much as we are trying to adopt AI, AI is here with us to stay. Yeah, so we are not asking whether we should use it or not. We must use it, but as much as we are using AI, we must not. I did mention in my presentation that we must not forget about the human intelligence. So the human intelligence is equally critical. AI can make work extremely easy for us. For example, in terms of uh, the speed of collecting the data. Yes, and I've been mentioning to in various circles how my students feel so bad with me these days because of AI. My students, whom I used to pay like $50 per day to do for me note taking and things like that when I'm doing the interviews. So these days they're asking me, sir, why are you not involving us in your work? And I think maybe Elsie also need to tell us about this, how AI is also disadvantaging the young and emerging evaluators because they feel now like they are disenfranchised or something like that. The work that I could do with two research assistants. Now I can just sit on my laptop and conduct an interview. By the time I finish conducting the interview, I'm getting my transcript ready, which I can now just go through to do a little bit of polishing. So I'm saving on the $50 per research assistant that I was using before. But that said and done, in as much as AI helps us in terms of speed, there are some issues or instances where we must bring in the human intelligence. For example, AI may not be able to effectively engage with stakeholders. When you are conducting an evaluation, you need to meet with some stakeholders, whether physically or if not physically, then virtually. But the one-to-one engagement with the stakeholders tries to get some issues that AI may not be able to capture. Then also, I think in terms of context specificity, yeah, it is the human intelligence that is able to analyze the context, say, in terms of the social context, the political environment, or just the general context of an issue. Yeah. For example, if we are talking right now about an evaluation that may touch on health implications, maybe AI may get something like what is happening in Uganda and in the DRC with Ebola, right? And what the impacts of that emergence of that disease. But still, the human intelligence is supposed to come in and identify the specific political context. Like, for example, someone is coming to give you money so that you can host their Ebola patient, something like that. So we still have to use the human intelligence to do that. And I think this is slightly related to a question that was asked by Gordon. Yes, and I just mentioned that AI can help us in terms of quick automation of data collection process and processing, but human intelligence will still be necessary. The other question
Dr.
which was
Ponge?
asked, yes.
Yeah, one question. You had one question.
Okay,
Non-delegable. One
okay.
question. And I'm also seeing that we have to also leave. So let me allow Dr. Stephen and Anna also come in quick.
Thank you.
Okay.
Dr. Steve?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for your question. So you are talking about the red line. But for me, I don't want to call it a red line. We will draw the red line if you don't do what we are supposed to do. So in most cases, AI actually reduces the level of effort that we put probably in an evaluation, because if most of the tasks are actually automated, what it means is that we end up having time on our hands. So now the red line now is when we don't use that that time that has been given to us to actually promote what we want to see happening in evaluation. I think most of the commissioners of evaluations currently, their biggest challenge is that they will say you can't use this methodology; it's time consuming. But now with AI, it actually reduces that effort. You still remember participatory methods. Everyone else talks about no, they're time consuming. And also we used to struggle, especially analyzing like large volumes of qualitative data sets. But now it's quite very easy. So we need to use the time to train AI to do other things that actually promote issues of equity, indigenous knowledge system in evaluation. So if you don't use that time and just sit and say AI is doing everything for us, and then use the time for something else, not promoting what we want, then it's going to be a bigger problem for us. So the red line is actually, let's use the time that AI has actually given us effectively in promoting what we want to see in the evaluation space. So let me stop here.
Thank you very much, Steve. Anna?
Okay, thank you, Eugene. My question was about what would an African AI-ready evaluation system look like by 2035, if I got that right. First of all, I imagine by 2035, an African AI-ready evaluation system would be rooted in the principles of Made in Africa evaluation. This means we would not be solely relying on imported methodologies, technologies. Instead, we would be using the AI systems to, design our work around African realities, values, cultures, and norms, the languages, the development priorities, and the ways of knowing of the African continent. AI would become more of a tool that amplifies our African voices rather than replacing them. And for us, such a system would be supported by strong African data ecosystems, governments, development partners. All these stakeholders in the evaluation ecosystem would invest high quality, ethical, and locally owned data infrastructure. Data would be generated, stored, in frameworks that protect the sovereignty of the African ways of knowing and working. It's a lot I could imagine about an African-ready AI evaluation system by 2035, but I think the evaluation function itself would become more real-time, more predictive, more adaptive, rather than relying on, periodic and endline, these things of surveys, midterm, endline. We would use AI-powered systems to continuously monitor program implementations, detecting emerging challenges, like Dr. Ponge mentioned, what is happening with Ebola right now. We would have those, kind of predictive analytics that would come in handy to speak to the local realities of the African continent, and also generate actionable insights. So evaluation would move from asking what happened to answering what is likely to happen next and what should we do now. For me, that's the kind of AI-ready African evaluation system that I would imagine by 2035. Thank you, Eugene.
Thank you very much, Anna. Thank you, Dr. Steve. Thank you, Dr. Ferretti, and also thank you to you, Dr. Ponge. We really appreciate you all. With that, we'd like to thank you all, and over to you, Talita, please.
Yeah, thank you so much to the panel and to you, of course, Eugene, and everybody who has joined. Like Eugene mentioned, there isn't enough time, with this kind of conversation, we get carried away and very excited. But do email us your questions. We do have some in the Q&A right now, so do email them to us and we will be sure to share them with everyone. Rossetti has sent a reminder about all the sessions that are happening next week. We just want to encourage you to please log in and register as many. Let's share, let's learn, let's share our perspective from all around wherever we are. And we will see you at Local Evaluation Lead next week. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks.